Hello, I'm Lizzie Paish. I'm a transformational coach and I'm leading a wellbeing project for the Vascular Society called the Rising Tide Project. And I will be interviewing various people for this project, various vascular surgeons and other interested parties, hoping that you will get something from hearing of their experience that's valuable to you. So the first thing to say is I'm not an expert video editor. I'm not a professional interviewer. So no doubt these videos will get better as we go on. So please bear with me if there's one or two little glitches in the editing as we go by. But I very much hope that what my guests have got to share with you, you will find helpful, and hopefully we can start a conversation. So if there are comments and questions, if you've got thoughts about people you would like me to interview or questions you'd like me to find people to address, then please get in touch and I'd be really happy to do that. This first recording, I'm meeting Mr. Mike Guest, who is a vascular consultant at the Lister Hospital in Hitchin. And he's agreed to talk to me about his experience feeling that he was burning out a few years ago and how he recognized that and how he handled it. So thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time to join me. Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit further, and then we can talk about your experience of what happened to you?
Yeah, sure, Lizzie. I'm Mike Guest. I'm a consultant vascular surgeon at Lister Hospital, and I've been there for over 20 years in that role. And I've been, prior to that, I've been a doctor since my early 20s, really. So, yes, I've worked in various places, but yeah, been in my most recent role for the last 20 plus years. So.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that was like a really fulfilling role for many years. And then you were telling me last time we spoke about that you sort of found yourself a few years ago sort of starting to experience what turned out to be burnout. So can you just tell us a bit about, how you realized that was happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd always really been enthusiastic and loved my job. But a few years ago, I realized that that was no longer the case, and it had been creeping up on me. I think don't think there was a one particular day, but I was just stopped enjoying it. I was feeling drained. I wasn't as empathetic towards my patients as I previously had been, and I was just getting increasingly irritable, I think, particularly at work.
And how did you sort of come to the realization that this was these were symptoms of burnout?
I read something online about burnout. I think I came across it by accident, really, and it mentioned some of these symptoms, and I basically ticked pretty much every box that they were talking about. So yeah, I realised that there was something amiss.
Yeah, which is hopefully what this kind of conversation might be helpful for other people, because it's sort of, when you're just becoming sort of more and more short-tempered or not enjoying stuff, it's like you say, it creeps up gradually. It's not something where you suddenly think, oh, this is a thing. It's just feels like, I don't know, things are getting on top of you, or you've just had enough or something like that.
Yeah.
Can you just share a bit more about some of the sort of experiences that you were having that wouldn't have been you wouldn't have felt prior to that?
Rather than looking towards expanding my practice, I would just sort of look to be doing the same operations. If something particularly tricky came along, I wasn't looking forward to the more difficult operations, which I used to. Particularly as a new consultant, I'd be looking forward to those challenging operations. I think that it affected all sorts of aspects, really. Certainly with patients, I was less empathetic, as I said before. Colleagues, I don't think I was as a good member of the team as I had been previously, I think.
Yeah, when you're short of bandwidth, you haven't got much to share with anybody else, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I started thinking about, how many years have I got left? How many, because I was at the time, I was in my early 50s, and I was thinking, I really can't see myself lasting the course here, really. So, yeah, I started looking at options.
Yes, yeah. And I think the other thing you'd mentioned to me before was about that if anybody complained about something, you just had a really low tolerance for that.
very much, very much. And it's part of our job to answer complaints. And most complaints, if you look into them, they do have some merit. But I was finding that I was seeing less and less merit in some of these complaints in particular. And I think I told you one example, which I can go into in a bit more specific if you like. But yeah, I didn't want to look at complaints at all. I thought, particularly after all we've been through in COVID and after the danger that we put ourselves into, I didn't think that I should be having to deal with such complaints, particularly the ones that didn't have very much merit in them.
Yes, yes. Whereas before you just kind of took that in your stride because it was part
Yeah.
of what you had to do. Yeah, yeah. Or if you've got an example you'd be happy to share, then I think that would be great for people to hear.
Yeah, well, so a vascular surgeon will relate to this. We did an emergency aneurysm repair on somebody, and it went very well, and they survived that. And then after that, after they'd left hospital, we received a complaint with multiple points. One of the points was that one of the salad that they were served had not been freshly prepared, and that really was the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of me and complaints, really. So yeah, that was the specific example.
Yeah, and if you're feeling kind of okay with the world, then you just be like, oh, for goodness sake, and you just brush it off, wouldn't you? But it's just like,
off about it, wouldn't you?
so yeah, I can really see how you're just feeling like, oh gosh, how much more of this, and how am I going to stay the course? So what was it, do you think, that started to turn things around for you?
Well, I having never known anything about finances, I got a financial advisor in to see if what my options were and whether I could, in fact, take retirement, take an early retirement. And he went through all the numbers, and I was in a fortunate enough position that I could have taken early retirement in my early 50s and done, maybe done something completely different. And I found that really helpful, actually. So it meant that going to work was an option. It wasn't something that I had to do to pay the mortgage or to get the kids through whatever they were doing. And yeah, that was quite freeing, I found.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because obviously you didn't take early retirement at that point.
No.
But there's something, I often find this in my coaching, that often that knowing that you've got options, or really it's realizing that you've got options that were already there but that were maybe invisible, means that you can kind of relax, and then you can look at things more objectively, and because you haven't got to be there, then you start to think about, well, might it be okay to still be there? Because actually that, in a sense, that didn't make any difference to you at work, because you still were at work and your finances was exactly the same. It's just this knowing that I could somehow, it takes the pressure off in a way.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And now looking back on it, with hindsight and looking where I am now, I've no intention of taking early retirement because I'm enjoying it again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So can you pick that apart a little bit for us? So you kind of had this realization that you could have retired.
Yes.
And then what happened? Because you obviously didn't.
Yeah, I just started. I mean, we were in the fortunate position that we took on some new colleagues who have really brought new energy to the department. The department's in quite a good functional place right now. I've started enjoying training a lot more than a few years ago. So I've put a lot more effort into training the new surgeons coming through. And yeah, some more academic interests, which maybe I didn't have before. I've started doing some academic projects, which I wasn't doing for a few years prior to that. And yeah, just having recognised that's what it was, now I can sort of move on, really.
Yeah. It's really interesting how it's like a sort of, we were saying earlier, there's a sort of either a virtuous cycle or a vicious cycle you get into, that when you feel low, you don't feel like doing anything. And so you're kind of not really very involved. And then you just feel even worse. Whereas as you start to feel better, and for you, that was that realization of, oh, I don't have to be here. Then you start to get more involved, take more of an interest, look for new challenges. And suddenly you're starting to feel better because of that. So it's sort of just that recognition that change can happen without actually anything sort of actually practically changing. something changes in yourself that means you can shift from one to the other. I think
Yes.
that's a really important kind of thing to see, isn't it? That's so
Yeah.
clear what happened for you.
And what I was saying earlier, I've done a brand new operation that I've never done before to try and solve a particular problem that's been bugging me for a few years. I mean, that's gone really well. So that's given me sort of optimism to look at some of the other clinical problems that we've got and see what can be done about them.
Yeah, fantastic. So it's just so different, isn't it? It's like you're looking out at a different world from the world you were looking at 3 or 4 years ago, where it just was like, oh gosh, how am I going to get through the next 10 years? Now it's almost like, wow, I've got so much to cram into the next years before I retire because you've got these new challenges. Yeah, fantastic. Such an exciting, sort of inspiring story. So if if there's somebody maybe listening to this who's experiencing a similar thing, what advice would you give to them?
Look into the symptoms. See whether this is you, whether burnout might be related to you, or is it somebody else? But you do need to have a chat with somebody, not necessarily within your own department, but somebody maybe independent, or another surgeon in another hospital even, or someone like yourself, Lizzie, who can help or put you in contact with the right sort of person. Maybe it's a financial opinion like it was for me, but more likely it will be a colleague, but possibly someone not in your own department, I would say.
Yes, yeah. But all of what you've said, it really comes down to talk to somebody about it. I've had so many conversations with people talking about something from the past, like you're doing, who then said, oh, I didn't tell anybody. I felt like I almost felt suicidal, but I didn't even tell my partner. There's a lot of this kind of, I can't tell anybody. And I think that's a big reason for why we're making these videos, talking to people, this whole project that we're doing with the Vascular Society, because I just really want to open it up so people know that it's okay to talk to somebody, that you've suggested different options for who you can talk to. Yeah, so I think that's why I'm doing this project, because I'm outside. Somebody completely separate from your department might be easier. If you've got a colleague that you really know well and trust, that's fantastic, but not everybody has. So being able to make those connections somewhere else is also really important. But yeah, don't wait till it gets really bad as well. I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Just somebody as soon as you can. Thank you so much. It's really great that you've had to share that with everybody. So thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.